James chapter 32. Near 500 homes were destroyed that night, plus shops, churches, and stables. Thousands of people were homeless without even a change of underclothes or clean stockings. Many did not eat meat for weeks on account of the death smell that poisoned the air. The job of finding bodies was so gruesome it caused grown men to scream out loud. They burned the dead quickly. Folks said that the fire started in a low groggery near the Whitehall slip. From there, it burned uptown, pushed by a strong wind, devouring Bridge Street, Dock, Stone, Market Field, and Beaver, and then it ran up both sides of Broadway. Almost every building in Broadway to the edge of the North River was in ruins, all the way up to the open field known as King's College. It was called, or they called it, the burned over district. God's judgment on the British, whispered the patriots. Rebel sabotage, shouted the loyalists. Most figured Americans wanted New York burned to the ground to leave the British without shelter. While the fire still raged, groups of soldiers searched for arsonists. One man, found with rosin and brimstone tipped slivers of wood in his pocket, was tossed into a burning cobbler shop. Another was quickly executed with a bayonet through the chest. Half a dozen people were hung while the fire still raged. One from the sign post of the tavern. Another was hung from his heels and had his throat slashed. The day after the fire, they captured a schoolteacher named Nathan Hale up the island near Dove Tavern. He admitted he was a spy, but he said he did not set the fire. There was no trial nor proof of his guilt. They put a rope around his neck and they hung him high. Folks talked about the pretty speech he gave before they kicked the stool away from his feet. He said he was sorry that he could only die once for his country. The lobsterbacks laughed at that. I coughed up mouthfuls of soot for days. My eyes felt crusted with embers. No matter how much I rubbed them or rinsed them with clean water, they remained swole up, red, and hard to see out of. I was lucky. I was not killed nor burnt. I had not even witnessed or twisted an ankle running from the flames. All I had lost in the confusion was Ruth's doll. All I had lost is everything. My bees swarmed back into my brain pan. They hummed so loud that I did not need ponder on the baby doll. They burned over the district, looked like the inside of me. It was hard to tell where one stopped and the other started. I feared my wits had been melted by the flames, twisted and charred. Dr. Desage came to examine Lady Seymour, and the left side of her body had gone to sleep and would not wake up. The doctor said it was apoplexy brought on by the fire. He bloodlet her twice and prescribed Meridance drops to cleanse her blood. Master Lockton insisted his aunt should recover in the bedchamber he shared with his wife. Madam was not pleased with the arrangement, but said nothing for a change. She visited the ruins of the Seymour house daily, waiting for them to cool enough so that she could poke through the ash with a hoe in search of coins or melted silver. Lady Seymour called me to her bedside. When she regained her senses, she tried to thank me, but the affliction pulled at her mouth and made it hard to figure her words. I gave her the portrait of the yellow-haired man and the letters that had stuffed in the pockets as we fled. She studied them close with her good eye, and then she sobbed with both of her eyes overran with tears. Madam bade me to leave the room. By the third day after the fire, the Locktons' house was packed tighter than a barrel of salt cod and smelled worst. We had been invaded again. Many of the rebel houses that were occupied by the British army had burned to the ground. Soldiers found themselves as homeless as regular folk, so their commanders ordered that anyone with undamaged home should share it with the men. We wound up with 11 fellows from Kent sleeping three to a bedchamber and using the second floor drawing room as their common area for dining and conversating. The master and madam moved their bedchamber to the downstairs front parlor and gave the library over to Colonel Hawkins, a high-ranking officer whose favor Lockton sought. The cellar was turned into barracks for 5 soldiers who had their wives with them. This was the Lord's blessing on me because the women were used to cook and clean their men's regiment. The new boss lady in the kitchen was named Sarah, a black-haired gal with a baby in her belly. She was not a friendly sort. None of them were, but she did not call me names nor seem inclined to hand out beatings. I did miss Becky Barry more than I thought possible. It was odd sleeping in the cellar with strangers. They sure did snore, the women as bad as the men. Their bodies gave off noxious odors, too, gases so strong they made my eyes water. The night of the first frost, I woke up to a soldier pulling off my blanket. I lay in the dark, fists clenched and teeth sharp, thinking he meant to do me harm. He did not. He was simply cold and in need of another layer of cloth. Next morning, Sarah agreed I could move my pallet up to the kitchen hearth. It was lonely sleeping without that full